Manchester City against Arsenal also coming up this weekend, and it's a chance to see Pep Guardiola taking on Mikel Arteta. What is their relationship like, Jules?
I think it's obviously very respectful. They like each other, but they're not the closest friends either. I don't think they see each other out of when they used to work together at City, for example. And it's interesting that Pep, to replace Arteta, has gone to get someone completely different. You would think that maybe he would have gone for someone with a similar profile or brains, and he went for Juan Malilo, who's far more experienced, much older than Arteta. That would bring him something very different,
Less
I think.
likely to go and get a job of his own.
Yeah, or maybe even to contradict him, I think, because I think Mikel at times really was bold enough to say to Pep, I don't agree with you there. I don't think Juan Malilo is that kind of guy.
Well, Arteta, lots have been said about the difference that he's made at Arsenal. In terms of the way things are, is it about results, or is it about knowing that there is a plan in place, that this looks like something that has a future, that is long-term?
There's a plan in place for definite. And I think when you look at Arsenal's last couple of results and the way
Just before you, how long is it since you feel as though, or you have felt that Arsenal have had a plan?
Since Arteta's come in, a couple of weeks.
But then before that, when was the last time? When was the last time?
Even in the latter stages of Arsene Wenger, I didn't know what we were doing. I didn't know what's going to happen, and we were quite easy to dismantle. Same thing happened with Unai Emery, but I think that after a few weeks with Mikel Arteta, you could see the pattern of what he wanted to do. He wanted to play out. There was more organisation. The midfielders knew what they were doing. I like what he done with Xhaka. Kind of dropped Xhaka back. So then Saka went forward, and he just dropping his hold. You could just see things like, oh, that fits, and it just started to work, and you could actually see us playing out from the back and it working with structure. You know what I mean? And like I was saying, the two games what Arsenal won recently, where it just didn't work. It didn't work for them. They didn't play well. But they found a way to win the two games, and that is where Arsenal are now. Games that they would have maybe drawn or even lost.
The reason that I interrupted right here, and I won't do it again, to ask that point, is because it sort of sets up the job that Mikel Arteta had and still has on his hands at Arsenal, that it isn't just about moving forward, it's also about sorting out some of the mess that was left behind.
He took over a non-believing group, didn't he, of players, pretty much the same. Yes, Arteta's brought in a few players. Always helps when you win. If you win the FA Cup, all of a sudden he comes in there ringing the FA Cup, walking in the dressing room, dancing around with the players. Feel-good factor. Sign Aubameyang, huge signing for the football club, because that is their game plan at the moment. And Arteta, and I'm sure it's an evolving identity which he's got, because the Arsenal fans won't be happy with watching this for years and years. He will evolve it. It is a counter-attacking style. He's asking players, he's convincing the likes of Aubameyang to run back into the left-back spot, and Lacazette dropping so deep into the midfield areas, and Pepe on the other side when he plays. Whoever it is, they know they have to work very, very hard out of possession and not concede any spaces. And that's going to be crucial against Man City. It's almost like Man City are sitting ducks for this counter-attacking side with so much pace and firepower up front at Man City, of Arsenal. They will just sit in. They will let City have all possession. Arteta knows them as well as Pep knows them, and he knows where the weaknesses are. And the weaknesses are, for Man City, defensively, because they get exposed. The midfield do not really cover up the back players. That's not how Pep likes to play. It's how we love to watch football play, or certainly I do. I love watching Pep Guardiola, the sides, I love free spirits, all playing off-the-cuff football, with a certain amount of organisation, but he wants them to score goals and outscore the opposition. I think it'd be very difficult to break down a very rigid Arsenal side. And I think it possibly could be a perfect game for Arteta.
Yeah, it could be very nicely set up for them, potentially. We'll talk about City as well in a second, and the threat that they pose. But you'll know that Arsene Wenger has a book out. The reason you'll know that is because he's been interviewed absolutely everywhere about it. And he's been asked a lot about Mesut Ozil. And he is a sort of recurring theme. And it almost feels as though everything that could be said about him has been said, until the international break, when suddenly Mesut Ozil pops up and says, Arsenal are letting Gunnosaurus go, I'll pay his wages. And then suddenly you've got the Mesut Ozil story that you never thought you were going to see. But Wenger made the point, it's very sad about Mesut Ozil, for him as a player as much as it is for the football club. But is that it done now? Is his time at Arsenal finished, and it's just going to fizzle out in the background?
I feel that's the way he's taken, yeah. I think if they had any offers for him this summer, they would have tried to sell him. He played a bit at the beginning under Arteta, although that was a very different style of football and team that what we see now, where the team, as Righty was explaining, is far more advanced in the project than they were back in December, where Meza played and didn't do too bad, actually. I think that now the intensity is wrong for him. I think the way they play, the system, the formation, in that team that we saw, the 3-4-3, there's no room. He can't play anywhere. He can't really play on the right instead of Willian. He can't play on the left instead of Aubameyang. Certainly not in the two in midfield. So there's just no room for him either. And I just think that plus maybe a few issues at training with Arteta, it's just, it looks like it's the end.
And so you look at the way that Arsenal are set up at the moment and the new players who've come in. How cleverly have they picked players to fill gaps in that system that Mikel Arteta wants to play?
Well, centre half is something that with William Saliba. Saliba is somebody that we're hoping will kick on. He's obviously not ready, but we've seen Gabriel's come in at centre half and he's very good. I think that we've been very fortunate that the Saka's emergence through the youth team has been just magnificent. I think
current holder of the nicest man in football title.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And I think when you look at I think the Thomas Partey signing is again is the kind of signing that's who we wanted. We're not talking about a midfielder that people may feel is just a stopper and a destroyer and impossible to him. This guy progresses the ball, and the problem that Arsenal have, as well as Danny Ceballos can play on the ball and as well as Xhaka is nice passers, they don't progress it. And that's what Thomas Partey will do. He'll get the ball into areas, he can run with the ball, he can pass the ball, hopefully he can activate the right-hand side just as much as Arsenal's left-hand side. Because what Mikel Arteta wants to do, and Tim's right, yes, we do play counter-attacking, because at the end of the day we have to stay deep because we've got the pace up front to hurt teams. But now you get a midfielder who could say, hang on a minute, if we win it, we can be a little bit more constructive with the way we get up there, because you can't have a player like Aubameyang scoring 2 goals in one game and then you get another game totally isolated of chances at all. So you've got a midfielder now who can, alongside someone like Willian, and hopefully Pepe will continue to get better. You've got people who can create further forward in the pitch.
Partey's a massive signing for him. Huge. I mean, that was a problem area they had. It was a void in their midfield area, and he gives them that thrust, gives them that power. Also, I think a massive thing for Arteta to bring him to the football club is his mentality. I mean, he's played for Atletico Madrid under Simeone, and what does he demand? I mean, they win 1-0 like 12 times a season. You know, that's what they do. So he's got the responsibility. He knows he's reliable. He sticks to the game plan. And if we've got a manager in the Premier League at the moment who's got a real identity, a game plan, it has to be Arteta.
You've seen him in the international break in action. Is he ready to step in at Arsenal as well, despite not having necessarily been around his new teammates that much?
I think he would be ready physically. He's fit. He played with Ghana the 2 games. I think there's no problem. He would train, he would have trained Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, for example. We were saying with Whitey, maybe it's just not the game to start him now. Maybe you can bring him on, I don't know, depending on how the game goes. To start him, I would wait a little bit, just for him to see and have a look. It's hard to play against City, even if it's not the greatest City. It's still a bit difficult. Maybe don't start him this one, and then there's a game after that straight on.
Yeah,
absolutely agree.
Does he learn the plan? He might need to learn the plan. You know, he might need to wait a little bit. You know, Jurgen Klopp does this when he brings signings in. He doesn't throw them in straight away. He gives them time to have a look at the situation, how the identity of the game plan of what the manager wants. And I think that's what Mikel would do with Partey.
I think as well with him having to play at Atletico Madrid is that yes, he's had to play a different kind of way, but I think that he was actually suppressed at Atletico Madrid.
Yeah, definitely.
Because of the kind of midfielder he is, and I think that people may feel that he's a different kind of player, and that's why they might think, oh, he's one of those destroyers, and that he's totally the opposite. And that is what I'm excited to see from him.
So once he's had time to have a look around and listen to what Arteta wants from him, this is what you think Arsenal are going to look like at pretty much full strength. How much do you appreciate this starting 11 for Arsenal?
Yeah, I'd love to see it, because I think that starting 11, and we're talking about playing at the top of their game, maybe Willian, Pepe, if Pepe can continue his form, would probably take Willian's place. But, you look at that left side, awesome, natural. Those 3 guys there, Xhaka, Saka, Tierney, all left footers, natural balance there, and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang coming in off the left there. Then you've got Willian, Partey will be coming through, Gabriel, with the experience of David Luiz there, Hector Bellerin is playing for me. some of his best football. I'm really pleased to see him back to something like we know how good he is. And I think Suarez is maybe pushing him, and it's a good thing. But that, for me, is probably Arsenal's strongest team, maybe with Pepe in it.
Who's the most important person on that picture?
For me, Aubameyang.
And not the man on the left-hand side, Mikel Arteta.
Well, of course, Mikel Arteta, without a shadow of doubt, but we're talking about on that pitch.
Yeah.
Because if we can start getting Thomas Partey and Saka and all these guys to get that ball another 15, 20 yards up the pitch and get Aubameyang coming in off there, he takes half chances.
It's interesting listening to you talking about and saying maybe Suarez could be coming in, Pepe if he was back up at full pelt. And there's lots of strength in that Arsenal squad outside of that Maitland-Niles potentially coming in. There's lots of cover.
Yeah, Ceballos, who obviously is not in the starting 11 now, and you've got then the youngsters like Reece Nelson and Eddie Nketiah, who has done amazingly well with England under 21 in this international break. So there is depth there. I think they can even switch the play. We know that Mikel likes 4-3-3 formation, coming from Pep again, and how they work together. And I think Partey would fit very well in there too. So you could move on when Saliba is ready. He can come in the back four, in the back three. So I think there's a lot of options for them. They just need that little extra that maybe Thomas Partey will bring in terms of creativity, because at times this season I think Arsenal are 19th in terms of chances created, which is obviously not enough. Yeah,
and he could be the player who starts the moves that kind of build towards that.
Just to progress the ball more. Like you say, I think last season he had 54 take-ons and out of 60 something, and he was just like, I think Arsenal's best player was Ceballos with 27. So if you can get anywhere near those numbers, then you're going to be creating a lot more for the guys up front. You don't want to see Lacazette coming too deep. You don't want to see that. You want to see them stretching the teams, giving space to people like Partey to go and operate in. And then you get people like Aubameyang coming in and maybe getting those passes through, because he's got that about him, Thomas Partey.
And you were suggesting that Arteta was the most important person in that picture, because it's his vision that kind of holds it all together. It's interesting how much he's taken from Pep Guardiola and how much of it is just his own way and adapts to that group of players that he has.
Well, I'm sure Mikel would like to go and play like Pep plays. I'm sure he would eventually, but he knows he's going to work with what he's got. And there was some bleeding there. There was a little bit of problems, what he was left, and he's had to build it slowly, and I think he's doing a good job at that. Winning a trophy obviously massively helps. Players start listening to you. And like I say, he's asking players to play for Arsenal. It's one of the biggest clubs in the country. You know, that's why we talk about Partey, who's been at Atletico Madrid, and yes, he's had the shackles on him a wee bit, you know, but now you would think that it's important that he doesn't go to Arsenal and think, oh, now I'm here, I've arrived, I'm in London, I'm in the Premier League, the best league in the world, and what I'm going to do is start being something different. Arteta will tell him it's a great art of management when you're managing top draw players who can go to some of the biggest teams all over the world and tell them to do the dirty stuff in the game, the horrible stuff when no one really wants. You're not getting headlines from running back, tracking back, tackling people. Don't give you the headlines if you're a striker. You need to be scoring goals. But he's got a knack of making top draw players work hard first and foremost. And he knows at the moment that's the way he's got to go about it. Whereas Pep, on the other hand, always had that winning that ball back. And I think they've come away from that a little bit at the moment. I think they've got a few problems at Man City.
Yeah, I wonder if that's part of it, is that was Mikel Arteta, one of Mikel Arteta's main roles at Manchester City, was that link to the players and that almost kind of psychological role with them and getting that out of them. Is it the same with his new assistant for Pep Guardiola? No, certainly not. Start with the language, because I don't think Formalillo speaks very good English like Mikel, and certainly Mikel was a player not that long ago. You know, far more recently than Pep was, and even more than Lilo is. So I think the players related to that because some of them have even played against Mikel Arteta in the Premier League. And I think that makes a big difference if you're the assistant and you do that link between your manager or that technical staff and your players, because you're still one of them very much. Mikel was taking part of the rondos. He was taking part of every drills that he wanted to, etc., etc. Juan Malilo can't do that. Pep Guardiola doesn't do that anymore even. So I think that was a big part that they lost, and somehow, you know, I think there was rumours that they tried Vincent Kompany to be the assistant, or at least be part of the technical staff, and that would have been very much who to replace Arteta with. And just to finish on Arteta and Arsenal, let's not forget, it's not even a year in his project. And I was at the Liverpool game when they lost 3-1, but he said at the end,
Jurgen Klopp took 5 years to build this incredible team and this incredible club. But I'm not even a year in my project. And even Pep, it took him more than a year to build a successful City team. His first season was not very good in the Premier League. So let's give him time. But already what he's done in 9 months is pretty impressive.
Amazing.
Yeah, and it does feel he's getting the time, Mikel Arteta. There's no suggestion that people are impatient, that they can see the progress. But maybe there is some impatience at the moment around Manchester City in the sense that they had, not just that they haven't started this season particularly well, but the fact that they finished so far behind Liverpool last season, and maybe even more significantly that they didn't make it count in the Champions League at the end of the season.
No, I think that it must have been tough for City with the way Liverpool emerged. The season before, Liverpool chasing them down and they've beaten them by 1 point. Liverpool lost it on 97 points, and then the next season Liverpool just absolutely just wiped the floor with them. Mentally, knowing they're coming in that season, the one point season, then they came and then they totally obliterated you, and then they started the season again. There seems to me to be at Manchester City a problem mentally now, because they almost, you can't call a team like that shot. But we're talking about Pep going into his 5th season, the first time with the same club. I think it might be the first time he's rebuilding. We're seeing the problems he's had with Man City, trying to get a defence that's worthy of the football that they play offensively. And it just seems like at the moment, the team, what I saw against Leeds especially, was a team that just looked a little bit wary. I thought Kevin De Bruyne looked, I wouldn't say tired, but he looked a bit like a frustrated figure. Because...
So as someone who watches football, you watch a player and you might think, they look tired, they look frustrated. But what does that come from? What's like in a practical sense? What is that from a player's point of view?
He might be looking around and thought about the past glories or something, what he's seen, how we used to be. And then he's in and around, and they're not like that. There's no David Silva there, there's no Aguero up top, there's no Vincent Kompany behind. Players that he can fit in and just go about his business now. It just seems to be now, for me, with Kevin De Bruyne, a much more responsibility on him. And I think that might be taking its toll at the moment. I think that you're hoping that someone like Ruben Diaz can come in and settle quickly. I think he's going to have to. And when you go to a club like City, you have to settle quickly, because they're looking to win the league. They're looking to go deep in Champions League. So you can't give them too much time to have to settle in. They have to settle in. You've got people like Fernandinho having to play in centre-half. They're missing something from the midfield when he goes there. Because Rodrigo, for me, he's not got that defensive capability that Fernandinho. So they're losing a lot. They've lost Kompany, who's massive down that centre. Silva down the centre, and Aguero. There's a lot going on there that if I was a player, I'd probably start feeling a little bit like, and they train as hard, like you said, Julian. They really, really train intently. So it can get to a point where as a player, you're feeling a bit like, I'm kind of tired, man, and Liverpool's so good.
Is there an issue with recruitment?